This is our 15-year anniversary. We've been doing this since 1997. And when we started, it was the year that Florida was taking a hard turn to the right, and the odds looked pretty powerfully stacked against us. And one of the first things that we did was we held a roundtable of local gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered activists from across Florida. And we held it right down the street at Tom Oosterhout's place, Casa Antigua. And there were some of the folks here tonight were there with our feet dangling in the pool. Connie Gilbert was there. Evie and Julia were there. Tom was there. Phil Sheldon was there. We didn't have a lot of resources and we faced long odds, but we had a big idea. And that big idea was that this civil rights movement was going to come out of the states. And that seems obvious now when we look at the states where we're winning marriage equality, when we look across Florida at how we're changing this state, but it wasn't obvious then. And we sat around that pool and we realized we were onto something, and we began building this machine. And the person who I think brought that vision not just to Florida but to this movement, maybe more than anyone else, is our executive director, Nadine Smith.
Hello everybody. 15 years. You know, we were in Miami for our gala, and we were honoring a reporter, some of you may know, his name is Steve Rothaus. And he was one of the first out reporters in the country. And he was describing what it was like because he began his column 15 years ago. And he said back then I'd walk into an event and I would beg people, can I take your picture? And people would say, no, I'm not out. No, I'll lose my job. No, I'm a parent, I'm afraid of having my kids taken away. And he said, now, 15 years later, I walk into a place and everyone says, Steve, take my picture, take my picture. And it really resonated because in the early days of Equality Florida, Stratton and I would travel around and we would lay out our vision for what we thought was possible in Florida. And we tell people how important it was that we go to Tallahassee and that we hold them accountable. And people would say, now, Tallahassee, is that in Georgia? So we knew we had a huge learning curve. But mostly we had to do two things. We had to make people believe and understand that we were actually a state. That what happened in Gainesville mattered in Key West. What happened in Orlando was important to Miami. And we had to get people to believe that it was possible to make progress at a time when Florida had the dubious distinction of Anita Bryant's legacy and an adoption ban that automatically banned gay people from even being considered adopted parents. There were a lot of reasons, and as Stratton said, we had taken this turn to the right and they were openly hostile. And so we came to Key West. And when Stratton says, this is the community that taught us how to not just raise the money, but to inspire people to get involved, it's true. And it's not just in Florida that Key West has done that. Other states call to say, how do we create what you guys have created here? And one of the most important things Key West has done and continues to do is you embraced us. You treated us like we were returning from the front. And you bandaged us up and you fired us up to go back out there and to go to Tallahassee when it was really hard to be in Tallahassee. But here's what that means. In those 15 years, not one single piece of anti-LGBT legislation has passed. We've blocked every single one of them. And in those 15 years, if you looked at a map of Florida when we started, you would see very few places that had any legal protections. And now, we can't even update the map of where we are winning fast enough. Every time we print a copy, we've got 2 more victories that are left out, and quite frankly, there's a wildfire spreading across the state. Not just in those dark blue places where we expect good things to happen, but in rural communities. In Jacksonville, where just a few years ago when we tried to organize for passage of a human rights ordinance, we couldn't find people who really believed it was possible who would gear up. And now there's an incredible team on the ground The two-term Republican Mayor John Delaney, who's now the president of UNF, is right there at the forefront pushing for it. And when it came time to lobby the legislature, it wasn't the city council, it wasn't just us, it was the CEO of CSX, the 236 out of the Fortune 500, talking to the mayor, talking to city council members and saying, not only is this the right thing to do, but if Jacksonville wants to be competitive and wants to draw the best and the brightest, this is the minimum that we must do for our community. Right now, we've been telling people for years, we're reaching that tipping point, we're winning, we're changing hearts and minds, even since 2008, which was a tough year for all of us, from California to Florida. Attitudes, public attitudes have changed dramatically. And it's because when Steve Rothaus goes to events, people say, Steve, take my picture. It's because we're willing to step up. It's because we're willing to tell our stories. And most of all, it's because of this. Every civil rights movement has required that those in the majority stand with those in the minority. And straight people are stepping forward and saying, we're not just here as allies, this is our fight too. And it has made all the difference all across the state. And nowhere is it more visible than right here in Key West. I thank you all so much for setting that standard. So we've got a lot of work to do. The lifeblood of Equality Florida is the volunteer teams from our board, our steering committees. We've got some staff members here. I want to point out those emails you get. Tobias is to blame. I mean, Tobias is the one who's keeping you informed. Brian Winfield is here. He's our managing director. He makes sure we spend all your money the right way and we can account for it. Who else? Ro is here, and many of you know Ro. She's the voice and the face that you encounter most of all with Equality Florida. We've got our board member, Rodney White, who's here from Broward. And we've got folks who have come from other places. I know Tom Blunt is here from Miami. I tell people this. We have grown to the point where we have 10 galas around the state. And they're all very different. And now that I'm a parent, last time I was here, I was telling you my wife is pregnant and I was about to go away to Vermont, and I've only got 1,000 pictures of little Logan Marshall that I'll inflict on you later. But, as a parent, I feel as though I have to say it this way. I love all of our galas, but they're all different and I love them each in their own special way. But I do tell people, the one that you have to go to is the one in Key West. Because there's an energy here that will restore you the way it restored us when we would make those long road trips and we'd endure a legislative session of some of the most hateful rhetoric. We would come here and you guys would keep us fired up and you'd keep raising the bar and we would take that message all across Florida. So I'm not going to tell you that we're at a tipping point. I'm going to tell you it has tipped. And now our challenge is, will we seize the moment? Will we take advantage of the fact that the wind is in our sails? And I don't even have to tell you we're winning because you see it in the headlines day after day. But the question for us and the challenge to us is not to simply believe now it's inevitable, but that now is the time for all of us to lean in, to do a little bit more. And if you look around, this is an incredible crowd. But we all know somebody who's not here who ought to be. And we all know someone who hasn't really taken up this fight the way they ought to. So each of us can reach people that Equality Florida alone never will. You have a circle of influence, and now is the time we need everyone to understand that history pivots on these moments, on these conversations. And thank you so much for teaching us this model, for believing when very few people in the state believed, and for always raising the bar, and for restoring us year after year after year. Thank you. Here's somebody that I want to bring up. You all know him. He's a wonderful leader locally. He was there when the Equal Benefits Ordinance was being voted on. And he's one of the few people I know who's stared down a customs agent who refused to recognize him and his husband. Please join me in welcoming Rudy Molinek.
Thank you, Nadine. Good evening, everyone. Imagine the moral outrage we would have in America if the Florida Constitution were amended to prohibit Hispanics from marrying. Imagine the moral outrage we would have in this country if Jews Jewish people were not allowed to marry in New Hampshire. Imagine if African Americans' right to marry were on the ballot in North Carolina. It would be an outrage. Yet that is exactly what is happening today in this country to gay and lesbian people. Those three examples, if you swap out the words Jewish, African American, Hispanic, and you insert the word gay and lesbian, that is exactly what's happening in this country. And that's why we're here. And it is my great honor today to talk about one of the heroes that is helping us get past those days. And that's my very good friend, Jimmy Weekly. I was honored last year to receive the award for Voices for Equality, which I was very humbled to receive, and I really want to thank you guys for recognizing my voice, which is just really an amalgamation of everyone's voices, my friends and people that I know. But we've had many successes, and they've come to us because the gay and lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and all the other initials we use, rights movement, has come to fruition because of a lot of hard work, not just from gay and lesbian people, but also from our straight allies. And I think that is very similar to what happened in the African American movement. And without our straight allies, and there are many, many of you here tonight who really understand what we're going through, we would not be where we are. And Jimmy is one of them, and probably one of the most brilliant examples. Jimmy was gay and lesbian equality before it was cool. Many of you may not know he looks a lot younger than he is, but he started in the City Commission 24 years ago. In our City Commission, has been our mayor, and is our City Commissioner again for the district that Harry and I live in, which I'm very honored to have him as representing us. And Jimmy started in the late 80s, and that was not far after Anita Bryant. So it wasn't a very nice environment in Florida. It wasn't even that great of an environment in Key West. You know, we had a mayoral candidate who was openly gay, and there was a terrifically homophobic campaign from his opponent. So Jimmy was gay friendly before it was cool. And in 1990, he sponsored a hate crimes ordinance here in Key West. And I have a whole list of things in my pocket that he sent me, because, you know, he's very thorough. But the hate crimes ordinance, a domestic partnership ordinance, he amended the city charter to include sexual orientation in the equal rights provisions, a proclamation declaring one human family. Every time you see that slogan that JT put together for us, remember that Jimmy, as mayor, helped get that to be our official philosophy. And when Harry and I travel all over the world and bring those stickers and we tell people that that's the philosophy of our city, and we went to South Africa and gave that to people there in South Africa, and they were like, wow, America believes in that? And we do, at least here, and hopefully more places. And it's in large measure because of you, Jimmy, because of what you've done. And most recently, Jimmy was instrumental in passing here in Key West an equal benefits ordinance. So now anyone who has a contract with the city, talk about putting your money where your mouth is, anyone who has a contract with the city, like when they do the sidewalks, favorite subject of mine, as you know. When they do the sidewalks, the people who have the sidewalk contract are going to have to provide the same benefits, healthcare benefits, bereavement benefits, family care benefits to their gay and lesbian employees and their partners or spouses as they do to their heterosexual employees. Not more, not less, just the same. And that's really what this is all about. And Jimmy sponsored that, and it passed, and we're one of the few cities in this country, and it passed unanimously. And I might add, with a city commission that is not 100% Democrats. It's a bipartisan commission. He's our lead Democrat there, of course. But it's a bipartisan effort, and that's what we need in this country. We need more people like Jimmy Weekly who have no vested interest. He's a straight guy with a beautiful wife. What does he care about gay rights, Susan? And as I asked him, I said, Jimmy, why do you do this? He said, because it's important to me. It's important to my family. It's important to how I was raised. And to me, that speaks volumes of this man. So Jimmy, come on up. Congratulations. Our Voice for Equality for 2012.
Thank you. It says, Equality Florida 2012 Voice for Equality Award, presented to Jimmy Weekly for your endless generosity, your passion for your community, and your good humor. That was cute. They didn't have that one on mine last year.
It does. I got to get it amended. Time after time, your uncompromising support of full equality has raised the bar for all of us. Thank you, Jimmy. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I am truly humbled and honored to be presented with this award this evening. I do it because it was the right thing to do. I do it because it was the way that I was raised, and what my mother particularly, the direction that she gave, not only myself, but my brothers as well. And there's another reason I do it. And there's 7 reasons that it's so important to me to see that everyone is treated equal around this country. And you know, yeah, there's a number of ordinances and resolutions that I passed, but I could not have done that alone without the support of the city commissions that I worked with, and in particular the last equal benefits ordinance. And Commissioner Johnston is here that was very supportive of that, as well as the entire commission, and I greatly appreciate that. The 7 reasons is Keegan, Zach, Jake, Brian, Anthony, Carter, and Graciana. They are my 7 grandchildren. I want to see them be able to live a life where we don't have to pass legislation for them to have the rights that they deserve. I think it's important. I think it's important for all of us to look at our future generations, to make sure that they are comfortable in who they are. They're able to live their lives the way as anyone else lived their lives. We are one human family. And when JT came and asked me to sponsor a proclamation declaring the city of Key West, I jumped on that immediately, because it is exactly the message that we need to send out around the world. As Rudy said when he was in South Africa, he distributed some of the bumper stickers. In my past life, when I was mayor and I'd go to conferences, I would carry those bumper stickers with me. And there was always a table to lay any information out you wanted. And they were the only item on the tables that ever completely disappeared, because that message was important to those elected officials. And that message was, in fact, going to be spread around this country. And I was happy to be able to be a small part of that. And I just want to thank everyone for being here this evening. And this is a commitment that I will always fight for, equality for everyone, regardless. Thank you all and have a wonderful evening.
Now we're going to bring up our final speaker this evening. I said this host committee has been the heart and soul of our gala program, invented this program 12 years ago. John Allen was at the very first gala at Frank Romano and Joe Liska's home in their living room 12 years ago, and has been a part of our team ever since. Please join me in welcoming John Allen.
Thank you, Fred. When Evie called me the other day and asked me to, we call this making the ask, I said I'd be honored to do that. I'm a little teared up now after listening to Jimmy. I don't need to tell you, I don't think, why it's important to give. I think you wouldn't be here tonight if you didn't believe that this is one of the premier civil rights movements of our lifetime. What I would ask you to think about is that we, in this space tonight, live in a bubble. We live in the most beautiful bubble on earth. It's not just the physical beauty of this place. 100 more tourists coming in. We like that. It's not just the physical beauty of this, it's not just the ocean, the water, the reef, all this beautiful tropical foliage, the architecture. It's the people. You know, every one of us here in this space tonight is here because we chose to be here. Whether you were born here and you chose to stay instead of moving away, or whether you've moved here from somewhere else, you came, I suspect, as much as anything because you were attracted to the kind of place this is. You were attracted to the people. You're the kind of person who's turned on to people. And for me, this is the most profound blessing to live in a place where I'm surrounded by people who care about me and love me. And I hope that you all feel the same way. But what we need to be focused on tonight is that the rest of the world isn't like this. There are people who are losing their jobs today because they're gay or lesbian. There are people who are losing their children because they're gay or lesbian. There are people who can't get married and who don't and can't afford the kind of protections that all of us create for ourselves in that situation. And so what we're doing tonight is, I hope, exporting part of our benefit to those people who can't provide these things for themselves. And I'm proud in a way. I'm usually very protective about money for Key West. It's a small town and it's hard to do things down here sometimes. But I'm really proud that every single penny that we're raising tonight is out of town already. It's going to support this amazing effort in Tallahassee that has, in a miraculous way, protected every one of us from what could have been much worse in a state that has gotten progressively more and more right-wing over the last 10 years. So what we're trying to do tonight is raise $150,000. It's a huge amount of money in a town this size. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to meet that. But, you know, almost every one of these 12 years that we've had a gala here, we've exceeded the goal. So I hope we can get to maybe 155 or 160, because every penny that we raise is going to make a difference in the job that we're trying to do. So if you have pledged already, have you pledged at the council level, $1,200 a year? It isn't anything, you get a pin, you know, that's nice, but you know you're helping more than you might have helped last year. If you haven't given anything, don't feel shy if you can only give $25. It's not how much you give. It's really important that everybody participate. But our people are going to pass among you now and distribute pledge cards and a pen, which you get to keep. So please donate at least enough to pay for the pen, okay? But
they're $10.
Wow, I got a bridge I want to sell you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of this amazing thing. And just thank you for being.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy. Party goes until 7:30.